If you had to say, I wonder if you would describe the world as generally good or as generally bad. It's got a bit of both, really, doesn't it? There are some wonderful things and wonderful people, and there are some awful things and awful people in the world. Now, you guys know I love putting questions on my whiteboard at church, and today's would be, what do you reckon are the biggest problems facing the world today? And there are some obvious answers to that given where we all are and what we're all doing at the minute, or kind of why we're staying indoors and stuff. But there are some other things you could put. Maybe hunger or poverty, bad people, war. Well, we're going to have a little look now at how everything was created and how we ended up in a world with those problems in them. So let's start at the very beginning, which the sound of music tells me is a very good place to start. This is Genesis 1, verses 1 to 5. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw that the light was good. And God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. And we can read on over the other days of creation. And the word used to describe it is the same as we saw there in verse 4. Good. It was good. Creation was good. And it stays like that right up until the end of day 6, when everything is finished. And then it's not just good, but it is very good. So what went wrong? Why is the world like that now? Well, let's move forwards together to Genesis chapter 3. This is verses 1 to 7. Now the serpent was more crafty than any other beast of the field the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, "Did God actually say, 'You shall not eat of any tree in the garden'?" And the woman said to the serpent, "We may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden, but God did say, 'You shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that is in the midst of the garden, neither shall you touch it, lest you die.' But the serpent said to the woman, 'You will not surely die, for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil.' So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. And she also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate. Then the eyes of both were opened, and they knew that they were naked. They sewed fig leaves together and made themselves loincloths. In the very good creation, there was one rule. Don't eat of the fruit of the tree in the middle of the garden. But the serpent here, I don't know if you noticed, he tries to make it sound like God is some totalitarian spoil sport. God didn't really say that, did he? So harsh. He just doesn't want you to be happy. And then he outright calls God a liar. Did you see that? You won't die if you eat it. God's making it up. And Adam and Eve believed the serpent instead of believing God. They rejected God's rule. Knowing good and evil, it's all about deciding for ourselves what's right or wrong. It's taking God's place and trying to be God for ourselves. And that is something that then broke God's good creation, which we'd see if we read the results of that later on in the chapter. Let me give you a few highlights from what it says. Cursed is the ground because of you. In pain you shall eat of it. Thorns and thistles, it says here. Thorns and thistles it will bring forth for you. You are dust, and to dust you will return. That first sin spoiled God's perfect world. We've been saying how there is a world that we all want. We've been talking about what that might look like. But that's not the world we have at the minute. The world we have at the minute isn't the world we all want, but it is the world we all deserve because of what happened here. But we aren't left from this chapter without hope. That's not God's perfect world gone and done forever. Let me read you one last part of Genesis 3. This is verse 15, and in it God is talking to the serpent. "I will put enmity between you and the woman, between your offspring and her offspring. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel." And right in there is the promise of rescue. The promise that things will be made well again. A descendant of Eve is going to come and bruise and crush the serpent. Crush and defeat Satan and restore God's good world. That is the first of many promises that God makes to his people in the Bible. This promise that Eve's descendant is going to come, crush the serpent, and bring forth and restore God's perfect world. It's the first of many promises. And next week, we're going to be looking at a few more promises God makes to his people. In the meantime, have a great week.